Hello. So it's currently 7 minutes to launch, and I always come in a little bit early just to make sure that the live stream is working, and it appears to be. We've got some people watching live. Now, if you want, you could go to if you're watching this live on YouTube, you could go over to the chat window now and you could type, say, hello, I'm Alan from Preston here. Looking forward to catching up with all of you to find out what we missed at the event. And then we go live in about well, we are live, but the event starts in about 5 minutes or so. And if anybody wants to share a link to this with people on, as long as we're not going to get inundated with lots of people, then by all means do so. And I'm just going to remind people there is a link. If you're one of our presenters and you want to watch the live broadcast, there is a link. I'll read it out first. It's http:// it's exa.is/RJam live. Just typed it in the chat there. So that's it. Anybody who wants to watch the YouTube. Hello, Anthony. So we start the event in about 3 minutes or so. Anthony, changed the run-in time. We want you at 7:55. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Anthony Ball, 7:55 is when, so it means you can go to bed earlier tonight, Anthony. So Anthony, you're on mute at the moment, which is good. Unless you want me to hear your audio for a moment to see if it's working.
Do I just stay in this one?
Yeah, that's fine.
About 3 minutes or so.
And then you can put us onto the YouTube thing. Okay,
yeah. Bear in mind there's a delay, so I'm hearing our audio coming back from your YouTube at the moment. So you might need to mute that when you join us.
55 is when.
And Anthony, I will just repeat a message to you. I know you can hear me. Sorry, not repeating a message. This is for you, Anthony. But I'm going to start off at 7 o'clock with like a 15-minute of, this is some photos from the event. This is what you might have seen if you were there. And then we have a running order where we are going to ask some people what they thought about the event. So like, for example, I might say, Anthony, what do you think worked well? And it could be just in terms of what you had, the kind of things that people said to you, or it might be that you want to tell me things that you thought could have been better. So Anthony, we've got you down for 7:55, and we're not quite ready yet. So Spencer asked, Have expenses sorted. Okay. I'm going to do a screen share. So the program is on the screen at the moment. Let me just go back to something else. We're nearly at the 7 o'clock time. Oh gosh, so we've got Nigel from West Sussex is here, and we've got I think that's Scott is joining us from Edinburgh. Hello, Peter, James, Jim, and Janetta, and Martin. Glad you could join us. And hello, Dawn, and Josh, our moderator for this evening. Lovely to see you all. We will start in a few seconds. You should be able to see there's a program on the screen at the moment, and that's the plan for this evening. It might finish more quickly than that. So got a few seconds to go and then we will start. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Monday, the 6th of September Jam event. Now, we've been doing some things differently over the last 16 to 18 months. Well, first of all, this thing came called a pandemic, and it was, what are we going to do? Because we normally meet, when I say normally, we would meet in a space at the university once a month, always on the first Monday. And then from March 2020, we started holding our events online. So we've been running online jams, and we had our 100th jam where we had panel events. And we've been running online jams for 16 months or so. And then some people, one of them's called Josh, started saying, Alan, when do you think we might return to physical events? And we weren't really sure if that was something that we should be doing. We said, well, let's have an idea. And some people said, oh, well, if you're doing physical events, we won't be able to come. So we're exploring and trying things towards running hybrid events. So we have some online, some physical in person, and then some where there's a mix for both. So a week ago, just over a week ago, Saturday, the 28th of August, we held our very first Preston MakeFest. Still got some of my desk is full of all of the things left over, the bunting and the programs and all of that. So this evening's event, which is going live on YouTube, we're recording it for people to watch afterwards. What we're going to do is we're going to take you on a whistle-stop tour of the event. Now, our plan was to record video interviews with presenters, and we did that, but we perhaps didn't put as much time and energy and effort into the quality of the audio. So the video quality, the images from the video are great, but the sound isn't so easy to hear people. So originally the plan had been to play videos from the event. Now those videos, I will share them with you in a little while. You can go and watch them, but you might find you have to play around with your audio settings. So what I'm going to do now, if I just put a screen share back on, I'm going to share with you what the plan is for this evening's event. It's slightly different from advertised. So it's still called MakePrest Action Replay. And at the moment, we're in the introduction and welcome. And over the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to take you on a brief tour using photographs. I will highlight and pick out a few things that you might have seen if you were able to get there, or if you were there, think it will remind you of things. And if later on anybody's got some photos they can add to that folder, that would be fantastic. Right, following that, from 7:15 right through till about 8:25, some of our presenters from MakeFest are able to join us this evening, and we're going to have some informal discussions with them, reflecting on the highlights. So Erin will be up in a few moments, and I'll be asking Erin, like, what was it you brought along, and what kind of reaction did you find? You know, what worked really well? Did people really engage with these things that you had on display? And then if we were doing more of these, and we are planning to do more, plan to do at least 3 more like this next year, what might we do differently as organizers, or what might you do differently? And it may be that for Erin, for example, might independently go to some other events and bring some of the same things along, but based on what happened last week and her reflections and that, she might do things a little bit differently. When we talk to Brian and Spencer and a few others, these are some of the people who've been to a few of these kind of events, and they also may say, well, when I was at another event. But anyway, so what I want to do now is, using some photos, I want to show you some of the highlights from the event, and then I need to finish doing so in the next 10 minutes so we can go and have a chat with Erin. Now, those people who are watching live on YouTube, you can use the chat to type things. We don't normally record the chat and share it with people afterwards, so don't worry too much about that. But if there's certain things, certain questions, then please share them. Do you know what I'm going to do as well? I'm going to share a link to this document now, and I'm going to post it into the chat on YouTube. Why am I doing that? Well, it means you've got a handy link now to the program as the event goes on. But I've changed it so that anybody can comment. And there's a section in the document. Okay, close that. There's a section in this document that says that things that worked really well, things that would have been even better. And what you could do, if you have the time or the inclination, you could highlight something there, add a comment, and then I can read the comment and I can just add that onto that document. So it's not exactly allow everybody to edit, but you can contribute to the document. So I would invite you to do so, please. Okay, I will also share a link to, this is a photo album. Some of them people have shared on social media, these photos. Some of them are photos I've taken, and some of them are taken from the video. Now, each of the videos that we did record, we recorded about 10. I have uploaded them all to YouTube. I have made a playlist with them in, and you can go and have a look. But you heard what I said, the quality. We tried using a Bluetooth microphone, and it just didn't work very well at all. So I'm going to go into slideshow mode with this particular photo album now, and you're going to hear me narrate, explain some of the things. So here we go. So welcome to our action replay of the MakeFest event, which happened in Preston, in the city of Lancashire, County Lancashire, on the 28th of August. So in the lead up to the event, we had an open call for anybody who would like to come and present, to bring something along. And some people, we had to kind of nudge them and twist our arms just a little bit, because there were some people like John, who we'll talk about later on, like, do you really want? Yes, we do. So we had these programs printed, very nice they are too. Matt Moore helped with some of the artwork. And when people turned up, we put them into their hand and said, go explore, go have a look around. There's things on the first floor, things in the balcony, and do that. So you can find these images online if you go and look for them. We thought it'd be nice, as we were given the opportunity to take over the Harris Museum. It will be being closed in a few months. They're refurbishing it all. It's probably going to take a few years. So we had some bunting made, and we strung that around all over the place to give it that flavor. And we were able to stick it. The staff were really, really kind of positive and welcoming that they allowed us to do that. We got a little bit of coverage in the Evening Post, who created a little bit of a media uproar when they said, look at this R2-D2 robot, which is going to appear. And of course, an army of geeks came along and said, no, that, ladies and gentlemen, is a Dalek. But that was kind of nice, because it meant people engaged. And sure enough, R2-D2 did turn up. What an amazing project that is. Now, if you talk to Darren, who made it, he will let on that it's probably taken about 7 years to build this, but it is absolutely incredible. And what a crowd stopper it was. It was out on the flag market, it was moving around. And every time well, it didn't move that much, because the moment it did move, well, we'll come back to that in a moment, people wanted to pose for photos with it. So if you were ever organizing an event and you know somebody, so there's another group in Preston, they dress up as stormtroopers, and it'd be worth perhaps seeing if you could get some people to volunteer to support your event in that kind of way. And it just really helped. In the back of the photo, you can't quite see, but we had two absolutely wonderful STEM ambassadors, Linda and Stuart Shave, and they agreed to help us on the day and recruit people. We also had a little bit of a plug on the local radio. And that's something else I would suggest to anybody who's doing something like this before. It was really nice to do that. So as I mentioned, we adorned this gallery with our bunting wherever we could, and we used masking tape. It was all paper based, so that it could be recycled or reused, and we just used some ribbon and masking tape to string that up. So definitely go back a bit. So this bit here, this is known as the ring balcony. A beautiful space, lots of ambient light, but not the best place to plug things in. So we were a bit, that was one of the things we struggled a little bit with. There's a gallery called Discover Preston, which tells a little bit about the history of Preston and Cromwell and all these kind of things. So we found in that space there was lots of power sockets. We used that. And then there was the ground floor cafe area, which is next to the library. We thought we might see a lot of traffic. Now, the aim of this event was really to move out of the university for a day and say, hello, people of Lancashire, Preston, the world. This is us. This is what we do. So in doing so, we strategically placed some of our exhibits and displays in places where there was a lot of footfall. So, so Erin and Rachel and Lara, they had a table set up over there, and it was beautifully arranged. It was decorated with all sorts of books to support learning, a lot using microbit. And Erin, who we will meet in a few moments, had some projects there. Pretty much every time I went past, I can't say it was absolutely packed, because that probably wouldn't have helped too much. So that's why we spread things out around. There was always groups there. And what was really lovely was watching the looks of engagement. We had some photographers and captured some really nice images of families engaging with that. Now, also in the, here is one of the photographs. So you can actually see Erin in the photo, Rachel and Lara. And it was just so lovely, families wandering through and finding out more. And so many people said, no, they'd never heard of a microbit. They didn't know there was all these things out there. And here's some photos from Erin's table. I will share a link to this album and you can go and look at them later yourself. We recorded an interview with Erin. It's probably one of the only ones where you can hear the audio clearly, and I will share a link to that a little bit later on, and then you can listen for yourself. So it was a MakeFest. Well, we also had Dan, who is a maths teacher. He brought his family along. He's recently published a book all through lockdown. Dan has been running online talks and activities and lessons called Help Your Kids Maths. And because it was very much a family event, I thought, well, so we persuaded Dan to come and join us, and using Mario Maker and some challenges. There was high levels of fun, hijinks and engagement going on where children were competing against each other in these challenges. And again, very lovely sounds, hearing them all bouncing around. And there was, with a small hand portable console, children could create some of their own challenges. So one of Dan's family was there supporting that. Okay. So I mentioned the R2D2, absolutely incredible. I mean, if you were to commission and ask me to, you're talking many thousands of pounds, I guess. So not really competing fairly on the same level as some of the projects. Like when we talked to Spencer, I think Spencer had about 15 different projects, all spanning 1 year on his table. So please don't judge. Don't think Spencer's projects are not as worthy or anything. Talking to Darren, it sounded like Darren, this is the creator of this. He'd spent almost every waking hour over the last 7 years with this fantastic creation. But and Darren, there's a video recorded with Darren. Apologies about the audio quality, but Darren talks about how they often bring these to charitable events. So if you know somebody in this area in the northwest of England, but Darren said there's also in the video he mentioned that there's a group where you can connect up with other makers of robots and find out about helping raise money for charity. Lots of families throughout the day wanted to pose with R2D2. So I mentioned earlier that we had some lovely, wonderful STEM ambassadors who gave up their time to support us. So this is Linda. So Linda has actually written books on computer science, artificial intelligence, and had them published online. And she was just so happy to support and help us. And people said she was doing a great job going out on the street, giving out programs, encouraging people to come in. So thanks to Linda and Stuart for stepping up and helping us with that. Now, one of the things we've missed through the lockdown is just chilling and hanging out with our friends. We've tried to incorporate a little bit of that into our breakout rooms when we run them. But it was so lovely to see Heed. So is his nickname. Michael lives over in Huddersfield and he traveled over. And he was saying it's just so lovely. There's a little video interview where the audio isn't so great. And we're just chatting, catching up on what people were doing. And it makes you realize how much face-to-face really does help in some ways. And this photo here, I'm having a conversation with Rachel, and in the background, there's Garrick and Jasmine. Again, some people who volunteered to step in last minute and take some wonderful photos of the event. So it was just nice to see such a community feel to the thing. So we're moving around some more of the exhibits. So I thought, come on, Alan, you know, what can I do? So I brought along my cardboard museum of computing. I was kind of entertained with the idea that I found a box at home that everything all just fit into that box and nothing else. So I brought the box along. I didn't really spend much time at the table. I was flacking around trying to go and see what everybody else had. But people said that they'd seen the photos, they wanted to touch them and handle them. So to an extent, we allowed some of that. So we're now inside the Discover Preston gallery. I am running a little bit over time. I'll try and get through this in the next few minutes. So within Discover Preston, we had rough count, we had 8 stalls. So we have Gary here on the right-hand side with his 3D printed robots, and Kevin with planetary models. We then had over in the corner, Gory, who's a young student who had her A-level project with her, and she's going off to study computer science at Goldsmiths in London. We had these 2 center tables here with Brian and Spencer, and they brought along various projects that they've been working on. Just behind, you can just see John there in the background. So John is one of our Preston Jam makers. And then we had Tom Williamson, lovely big colorful banner there, Wi-Fi sheep. Tom had brought along some computers that you can build and program yourself. And then next to them we had Anthony Ball. So Anthony and I have known each other since one of the very first computing clubs in Preston back in the 80s. And Anthony was showing how to design, make, and program and publish games. And then we had 2 families, one from Longridge, one from Garstang, that were showing us projects that they'd worked on. So keeping an eye on the time, I think what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to wrap this up quite quickly. But just to say, we do have some videos. You can hear, I will share links to them where I'm talking to Gary about his robot, Kevin with his models that for people to assemble. There's an interview with Gory where we talk about her computer science project. And we're going to speak to Spencer shortly about his projects. We're going to hear from Brian as well just after Spencer. So Brian's going to be showing and discussing his reflections and feelings on the event. And John will also be joining us. So John doesn't usually present, so it's so lovely that John's going to join us tonight. We have Tom. Tom's brought some slides along to talk about his project. And Anthony is going to join us as well, and we're going to share some reflections. And then after Anthony, Josh will be our final discussion of the evening, and something happened to the R2D2 we might reveal later on. And then what was so lovely at the end, it was suggested to us that we get a group photo, so I managed to recruit some other volunteers. So a young scientist, I think she's aged about 13, 14, she took these photos, and there we are. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see if I can get Erin's attention. Alan calling. Erin, are you there? Erin, can we hear you? So Erin's waving at me. Good evening, Erin. Now, what we could do now is we could just talk to the camera, or you could say, oh, put back some of those photos, Alan. We could talk about those if you want.
I just talk.
Talk to the camera. Okay. So, Erin, I showed some photos of the things that you had on your table. Is this the first kind of event where you've presented things like this to the public, would you say?
Well, it's definitely like, that's the most people I've actually had like to present to, but I have presented to people before.
And when people were coming over, in fact, a few times I had to come back because it was quite busy at times. What were people saying? Were they surprised? Were they delighted?
They weren't really, they were just looking, and then I just said, hi, do you know what we're doing at this workshop? And most of them would say no, and then I'd just say, do you know what a MakePrest is? And most of them would say no. So I'd explain what it is, and I just said it's a mini computer which you can code stuff on. And then I just said what we're doing. So I said we're just attaching a MakePrest to a carrot, and just gonna it's gonna make a sound.
And we saw some photos of families interacting with that. Did you find you had to do a lot of explaining, like, oh, well, it's like a computer, but it doesn't have a screen, and if you want to did you have to do a lot of technical and explanation, would you say?
Yeah, I had to do a lot of explaining because like a lot of people just were around in town and then just decided to come in the museum, and so all these creations, and yeah.
Do you think anybody was a little bit terrified, or like, ooh, will I get electric shock if I do anything with this? Or nah.
No one said no one was scared.
Did you find people who were wanting to ask questions like, oh, where do I find out more about this? Or how do I start doing? Because I was listening in, you sound very, very confident when you're talking to people you've never met before about the things that you've been doing. Did you find that they were asking you advice about where to get started?
No, they weren't asking me like a lot of stuff. They were just listening, and then I said, do you want to have a go at any of our games? And then they said, yeah. And I said, come back in a while, we might have steady hand game ready.
Now, for people who don't know, I would describe you, Erin, as being a pupil at a primary school in upper key stage 2. So am I right in thinking you've just gone into year 6?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you now to imagine a time in the future, like a year from now, when you're just about to go into year 7, or maybe 2 years away, going into year 8. And you're coming along to another one of these events, and you maybe have 2 or 3 other friends who are coming. What might you do differently in a year's time if you were doing the same thing again? Would you do it exactly the same, or would you change some of them?
I would change a lot of it because like if my friends would be there, like I'd just, instead of doing my own opinion, I'd let them, I'd see if they wanted to, what they wanted to do, and then I'll tell you what I want to do, and we'll do a vote. But if it's a complete tie and there's one person who can't choose, we'll just go, and then we'll just let them go off, and then they just make their own thing and then come back and then just show it, and then we can just put it all on the table.
Well, we've done events like this before, but not this event. We've been able to run workshops in classes, but when we were planning it this time, because of COVID, we thought, no, we'll just have people really look at things. If you were doing a workshop or a class, and again, if you had some helpers, could you think of any kind of activity that might be fun for like 20 minutes or something, maybe off the top of your head?
Yeah, I just let them, so you know how like teachers tend to like get like, so if you've got a work sheet or like something on a like laptop and you don't know what your password is, they put like hand everything out on them. But I would do that, but I do it with like all the microbits, and then I do all the USBs, and then and I'll say how to plug it in, and I'll let them come up, and then just, try to code it.
Okay, now I've got one more question. Now, I've realized that one of the challenges when you're at one of these events, if you're somebody like me who gets excited easily, but if you're staying at the stall all the time, you don't really get to see much. Now, somebody told me that you left your stall for a little bit and then you saw something and you got really excited about this thing that you'd seen. And when you came home, you couldn't stop talking about it. Are you prepared to tell us what it was that you saw and what happened afterwards?
Well, I saw, I don't know what his name was.
Was his name Brian, maybe?
Yeah, his name was Brian, and then he had this remote control robot, and I just thought, oh, wow, that's actually really impressive. And now I'm thinking, oh, why don't I try and do that? So I'm going to try and do that, but instead of just a remote control robot, I'm going to make a motion sensor and like a light sensor, and we're going to try and get a microbit, which has a microphone in, so when I clap it, and I clap 2 times like this, maybe something will happen.
Now, I happen to know that you're a member of a club or a group that meets up once a week as well. And this is where I started getting excited. I started thinking, oh, if Erin's working on a robot project, which I think you're planning to use microbits for, it could even be that at some point in the future, this club, some of them come together to do it. And it may be that in a year's time, when you come to another event like this, you could show people, well, we got inspired when we came to Preston MakeFest and we went away and this is what we've made. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting carried away there.
No, I
Erin,
do that.
Okay. Erin, thank you so much for joining us this evening and for everything that you did around MakePrest or Preston MakeFest and for inspiring other people and also for being a little bit inspired yourself. Thank you very much. Okay. So we're now going to ask Spencer to join us. So Spencer is somewhere lurking there in the background. Can you hear me, Spencer?
Is anyone from the dark side around?
So Spencer, do we need to look at the photos? And we've already shared the photos.
You see the photos, yeah. Perhaps show that funny one later, maybe if you want to. I don't mind. Oh my goodness, it was a long day. I left the house at 8 a.m. I got home at 9 p.m. But it was a really, really brilliant day. My little suitcase on the train. I didn't even know where Preston was. I knew it was near Blackpool. I knew it was north of Birmingham. I knew it was up north somewhere. So I came up and what a day it was. I've missed this so much. I've missed the face-to-face events really, really badly. And it was so lovely to be at the Preston Museum there and actually have all the people coming around and looking at basically what's been for me 7 months of digital making. So thank you so much for having me because it was really cool. Thank you.
I'm just sharing a photo on the screen. we had a conversation afterwards, which I'm really glad that we did. Our plan had been to go around and record video interviews with everybody. And it was one of those plans that sounded great in the planning stage, but we should have tested it or raised some money and paid a team to come and do it. And that, that's a big lesson there to learn. But we recorded a video outside and it's one of the few ones that you can actually hear. And we had a chance to discuss and reflect. And you were telling me just how nice it was to travel to an event, getting your head around the event, which is, we've not been traveling for such a long time. You said it was so lovely to meet people face to face.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, just totally agree that actually with COVID, doing everything remotely has been brilliant. I mean, I think I've been to every single jam you've run remotely during the whole of pandemic, but actually to be with, just to watch people picking up my 3D prints, holding them, looking at them was so wonderful. And I think every stall in the venue, everyone was so excited to see what people had. Even if it was just like models and stuff, everyone was like, oh, what's that? who made it, where did it come from? Now, I suffered from really bad R2D2 envy. When I saw that big full-size one come wheeling up, I thought, oh no, my little one is going to be put to shame. And I've completely forgotten his name, the guy who made it.
Darren Paulson.
Darren was so lovely when he said to me, no, it's not about size, you know, you could still make a smaller one and still be part of the R2D2 club. And that was really kind of quite cool, actually. Now, if I play some sound effects, will you get a copyright content strike on YouTube? Or is that going to be okay?
We might have to blurt out some of the obvious things if we can.
Okay, well, I'm just going to hit run on my terminal just for a second.
Yeah, that's probably not too bad. Okay. Yeah, that's probably okay as well.
Right, we'll stop that. Okay. Yeah, because one of the things I got wrong, it's the only thing I got wrong on the whole day, was I thought, oh, we're in a museum, let's keep it not too loud. So I set the volume about 50% and no one could hear it. So we spent the whole day singing away, playing the music, and it didn't hear anything, apart from if you put your ear right next to it. So that was my take home, is make it loud, make it loud.
Well, I don't know if it's any consolation. Just let me share another photo. The multi-million-pound R2D2 that Darren brought along that's taken 7 years, it did have a mishap. Did you hear what happened?
No, I didn't. What happened?
Well, as I'm sure you know, R2D2's head can pivot, and there's a worm and worm wheel. No, it's a rack and pinion mechanism that is used to rotate, and apparently, this R2D2 thought he'd seen himself at a distance or a much smaller version, and turned its head so far it actually untwisted. There's a wiring loom inside, and it ripped the wires off. And it meant it lost all communications. It could, the bottom half could still move around, not literally half, but the bottom section, and which meant we got to have a look inside the R2D2 to see how it was constructed. There was another photo there. We just got a bit of a closer look, which is a bit of a shame in a way. I mean, I got the impression that Darren would be able to fix it quite easily.
Now, something really exciting came out at the end of the day for me as I was travelling back on the train back to Birmingham New Street. And I've been making projects, almost one project every month for the last 2-3 years. And all my projects are 3D printed. Mostly got Raspberry Pis and microbits, Arduinos. And I've made a decision, and I'm going to make a 1/16 scale proper motorized R2D2. It's going to be my project for the next 18 months, maybe 2 years. It's going to be 100% 3D printed. It's going to work, it's going to move around, and hopefully in MakeFest 2023, I should be able to bring it up and we'll have it scooting around next to the big one. So I've actually come away from the MakeFest actually inspired to do a new project for myself, which I'm really chuffed about. So thank you. My wife's not, she's a bit, okay. We agreed on 1/16 because it wasn't too big and it wasn't too small.
Spencer, you and I, we've met at some other events like MakeFest, Cambridge, we've met at some. I've met you also at Birmingham at some Raspberry Jam themed events. Based on what you've seen and what happened in Preston, if we were running 3 more like this in 2022, can you think of things that you think would have made the event even better?
You touched on it a second ago. I think if I'd had my big flight case of Raspberry Pis, I would have brought it with me on the train and I would have set up a little room and done a little workshop. I think the workshop bit is the bit we need to add next time, whether it's maybe in that space back at the university. But I think some actual kind of real, more hands-on stuff, because the show and tell was wonderful. But I think people wanted things to play with. What can I play with more? Because there was a lot of great stuff to see, but perhaps more to actually kind of play with and experience. And I think Erin said the same thing a bit, but the microbit as well.
Yeah, so I agree. I feel more comfortable with an event if we are putting on a workshop where it's hands-on that people can get involved in. But the issue was when we were planning this event, the COVID restrictions were still in place, and it was no, and we were trying to figure out how we would cope with all of the social distancing and all of that. And
But
also,
I think though, Alan, I think the genie is out of the bottle now. No, I keep saying this. 2 years ago, we couldn't live stream events. Oh, that was too difficult. But now we know that we can run an in-person event. We can do a Zoom event, stream to YouTube. And I think we need to do a big Alan-style mashup of mashing up the physical event with an online kind of stream of it as well, or much more interactive. Because I'd love to come to Preston. It was a 5-hour round trip. So if I could have zoomed in from Birmingham and said, hey, look at my projects from here, and we showed it in Preston, that would be really cool. Because I think, particularly in the evening style events, it's too far to come from Birmingham after school, but I think the hybrid event is definitely going to be one of the things moving forwards.
Yeah, I think as well, one of the tricky things, if you were presenting a workshop, you wouldn't then be able to bring your suitcase of all of your projects to put on display. But not everybody's comfortable running workshops. Not everybody, like myself included, I don't normally have things to put on display. It just so happened I started building things out cardboard, and which was a bit unusual. Spencer, once again, thank you for everything. Thank you for traveling up. Thank you for your support in everywhere. I know you've been tweeting about it lots and sharing things on social media. And we won't require you to attend all of them. Obviously, distance is a bit of an issue, and we're trying to reduce the amount of travel that we do. But it would be so lovely if you can join in, particularly with the hybrid ones in future.
Oh,
and for people, audience watching at home, Spencer and I had a good long conversation, which we recorded a lot of it. I'll share the link later. And considering, how is it, if we'd been at that event and we'd had some kind of fixed spot, could we invite people in to present to the camera, and audience at home and in person could watch at the same time? Right. Thank you, Spencer. That's you off the hook now. And if I'm right, I think it's Brian we're going to next. I think I might have to go and hunt Brian down. I think Brian is lurking in our green room at the moment. So let me just go and see if Brian's ready there to join us. So I did say before I was going to share some links to the video, and I think all of the videos, if I don't do it during tonight's event, I will include it in the description. I've decided not to publicly share them on YouTube because the quality isn't the best. But once you get the link, you will be able to watch all of the videos. Brian, can we hear you? Yes. Wow, what an interesting background you've got behind you there. I can see all sorts of colors and contraptions. Have you tidied up especially for our event this evening?
No, it's a mess at the moment. It's just in the back. It's just because it's far away.
You're saying it's a mess?
Oh, okay. It's a mess. So it's
it does look pretty. Oh, we can see the floor now. Oh, and all the little drawers on. Wow. So, I think we've got a new feature here for future online jams inside your workspace. How tidy it is. That looks amazing. I can see a timber ceiling. Are you in an outbuilding?
Yeah, I'm in a garden. Well, a cabin. So yeah, away from the house. So it's my toy room. It's where I come to play.
And does it get cold in the winter?
No, it's fully insulated. So it's actually one of the warmest places in the house when all the computers and screens and everything's on.
I thought you would tell me you got a stack of original Raspberry Pis. You just switch them on, get them doing complex calculations, and it soon warms up in there.
There's quite a few Pis in here, but most of the time they're switched off.
Now, Brian, if there was a prize for the furthest travelled to Make Preston, I think the prize would have been the Corteil family, because it wasn't just yourself. You brought other members along, and you've travelled from Cambridge. Is that right?
Yeah. Travelled up from Cambridge. So
it's very rare we get visitors up to Preston from Cambridge. So thank you so much for joining us there. And you brought such a fascinating array of projects. I mean, some of them are quite hard to describe to people who haven't seen them. They're kind of artistic, conceptual inventions. Can you describe one of them to us? And I'll see if I've got some photos I could show.
So I think the most probably the favourite with, especially with families, is the Naughty and Nice machine. So that's the white cube.
It might appear on the screen in a moment.
So let's see.
Oh, I've just seen the white cube there. It's in the corner.
Yeah, so
here.
it's that one there. Basically, it's a machine that can tell how. Oh, yeah, that's a better view of it.
Yeah.
Say how naughty you've been. So in where you can see the blue on the blue thing, you put your hand in and press one of the buttons on the front, and then it gives you a naughtiness rating. Everything. And funny enough, kids always come out less naughty than their parents.
I wonder why that might be.
Yeah.
Is it a completely random thing, or does it?
No, it's not random at all. It's
is it a trade secret you don't want to reveal?
Secret.
No, it's okay. Maybe it's something.
No, if you put nothing in there and press the button, it'll come out with 0. And 9 out of 10 times, depending on the age difference between, well, not the age difference, how old the child is they will always normally come out less naughty than their parent. But it's actually got one of the original Raspberry Pi Model A's on top with a camera, so you can see the ribbon.
I think you can sometimes
down, so
zoom in a little bit, but that's about as far as I can go. Yeah, so there's a ribbon. Oh, so there's a camera. So it's
there's a camera on the top. So,
okay, so it could be something to do with light or ambient light.
So, well, basically, it takes a photograph of the hand. I'm letting the secret out, and it counts the number of blue pixels it can see.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, no, not the blue pixels. The number of pixels that are not blue. and then it's got some weird maths and then it's converted into a percentage.
Okay. Now you had a whole interesting array of robots as well, and this one here, this is a robot in progress, isn't it?
Yes, that's Doofus. It's based on the Raspberry Pi mascot.
The Pi Wars.
Oh yeah, sorry, the Pi Wars mascot.
Yeah. Just so we don't get sued by any other companies in Cambridge that say we're trying to misappropriate their logo or anything. And you've published today online some updates that you've made.
Yeah, so it's got a thing. Let's see if I can share mine.
Okay, I'll switch mine off for a moment. So I was intrigued. It looked like it had 2 antennae on it.
Oh, going the wrong way.
Yeah, don't worry. And then we'll have a little bit of a chat about what do you think worked best in terms of the.
So you can see that I decapitated him briefly.
Oh.
And I've been fixing neopixels behind his eyes, so they can glow. And he's had an ear job as well, so the ears have been shortened.
So it does look a lot more friendly than the last time I saw it.
So, well, there is one to put the fear of God into you.
No, that doesn't look friendly at all.
So the white LEDs, they just been taken off Poundland fairy lights, factory fairy lights, and I don't think I took any off the thing there. There's one of these old ears. And
we did have another robot, much larger one, humanoid.
Yes,
that scared quite a few people, and I think it may have been the fact that it didn't have cute, friendly eyes like Doofus does.
thing. I'm hoping to put sort of like a cheesy smile across here as well.
So the word doofus is one that comes up a lot in our house. I know it can be used to criticize somebody. You might call them a doofus, but it's also, I don't know if it's a Lancashire thing or not, but they used to refer to as the indeterminate gadget, the thing, the remote control. The doofus is the thingy jig, the thingy bob that does the job, or whatever. Is that a Cambridge thing as well? Do people refer to a doofus?
I don't know why. I've heard it used in that.
Yeah.
In that way, but it's more of a. It's just as what the Pie Wars people call their mascots.
Yeah.
So logo. So
and when I was working in schools, and some teachers would carry a USB storage flash media on a lanyard around the neck, and they also referred to it as a doofus rather than calling it one of those other names. So Brian, it was quite a big trip. In fact, it involved an overnight stay for you and your family to come up to Preston. I daren't ask, was it worth it? Because I imagine there was a few words at home about, Preston, where is that? It's a long way up.
Yes, it was worth it. It was nice to actually meet people in flesh, and just to get some like real reactions to my projects.
One of the aims of the event was to inspire and engage others, particularly young people, to do things like this. And we already know from hearing Erin that after she'd seen your robot, her head was just full of all sorts of ideas. And her mum's been telling me now that she's like a thing possessed, like, thinking about how she's going to build this her next project that she's going to work on, and all other projects now have gone on the shelf. So it definitely helped achieve that objective. You've been to a lot of other similar kind of festivals and events. Is there something you feel that we still got to consider including for future events that could be improved upon?
I would have thought maybe some workshops if possible.
Yeah, the hands-on workshops are definitely something that was missed at this event, and that would have added something to it. But not everybody's comfortable running workshops. Some people are happy to sit in a workshop, but they don't necessarily want to be leading one.
Yeah,
as such.
And I suppose maybe having some things outside to be able to attract and drag people in.
Yeah, like an army of cyborgs to round them up and get them in the door. Yeah, that would be a really good idea. I wonder if we can get Gary printing some more robots in his living room.
I just so to draw thing. I don't know where the because I don't know Preston. It's saying where the footfall would be.
Yeah, well, we certainly, the audience that were going in there, some of them were just going in to pick up their library books, and they got a little bit more than they bargained for, thanks to you and everybody else. Brian, thank you so much for joining us as we talk through our highlights of the jam. And if I'm right, I think the next person we go to is Tom. I got that right? Yep. So Tom, thank you for joining us this evening as we reflect back on our highlights of Preston MakeFest.
Thank you very much, Alan.
If I'm correct, I think the first time we met in person was at a Stafford Raspberry Jam.
It wasn't actually.
No. Oh, okay.
It was close, Stourbridge.
Oh my gosh, that's
Stourbridge, right. And that was the very first time I showed up at
one of these events.
Yeah, I'm going to say 2014. I think.
Yeah, no, that would be correct. That's right. Yeah, we were at a high school there, Pedmore Technology College.
That's right.
Well, then I might have been correct when I said then the last time.
The last time we saw each other, yes.
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 So that was Keris organised the Raspberry Jam, and I believe she's got another one on next week, which sadly I can't get to, at the library in Stafford.
Yes.
Yeah. So Tom, you have your own YouTube channel, and on that channel, you have been demonstrating these amazing little computers. Can you just spend? Oh, you've got some slides that you
I've
want
got
to
some
show.
slides, so we'll run
Let's
through
do
my
that. Yes.
I came prepared, everybody.
You did. What are you saying, Tom? You're saying I wasn't prepared.
So let's see now. So you'll have to shout at me, Alan. Tell me you can see this.
I can see your.
There we go.
There we are. I can see
there
your
we go.
now.
Okay, so my project I brought along was called Tiny Basic Computers, and it's been a project been running for about 2 years. It started just before we had the whole COVID and lockdown on my YouTube tech channel, which is called Wi-Fi Sheep. So my project goals for this was to make a project to actually build a real programmable computer that was accessible to as many people as possible. It had to use easily available all new parts. It couldn't cost a lot of money. The budget was about 20 to 30 pounds. So that's 25 to 40 US dollars. Most importantly, no specialist tools. So things like no soldering was a big rule, and it had to be easily programmable, hence Tiny Basic. So I actually started with a bit of a classic gem, a 6502 microprocessor. Now, these things pretty much ran the 1980s. This is one of the rigs I brought along. The processor in particular came from a 1981 Acorn BBC Micro. The machine didn't work. I took the processor out, I manually wired it, and well, there are problems. It needs a real 6502. It took a long time to wire it up, and it was just the microprocessor. It was not a full computer. So the end result was it just blinked and flashed a bit. Not very exciting unless you're really into vintage processors. And by the way, if you've got your phone, I've got QR codes throughout this presentation, so you can actually watch the whole video. We did this on the channel. It's there for you. I will move on. So Tiny Basic Computers. It uses cheap off-the-shelf parts. It's actually powered by the Arduino Nano. It's easy to build. It's easy to understand. And most importantly, it runs as a real standalone 8-bit computer. That means it doesn't need another computer like a Raspberry Pi or a PC to work. It will boot up on its own. You put a keyboard in it for input, you put a TV or a monitor in it for output, and it's programmable with the 1976 version of Tiny Basic. Here is the most simplest rig you can make. This is a solderless breadboard, so all the parts just push into it, and you can buy pre-cut wires. So you just assemble it in about half an hour. And here is one rigged up with a keyboard and one of the little cafe tube black and white TVs. You don't have to use an old style TV. Most modern TVs can still accept the composite video out. That's the yellow video jack I'm sure many of us remember seeing. Now, the biggest problem with computer kits is that you get diagrams that look like this. This is the schematic for the Tiny Basic computer. But unless you're an engineer, stuff like this looks pretty scary. But if I took that and I showed you this diagram, I had these printouts at Preston on the day, and I said, could you actually build that? That diagram and that diagram are of the same computer. And I say to people, could you actually build that? Even if you didn't know what the parts did. Most people said, yes, they reckon they could. And there we are. There's actually a real version built from that diagram. So some links for you. The video series, this is building the whole thing, multiple videos online for free on our Tiny Basic Computers playlist. And we also have a Facebook group, and this is where you can download the hex ROM files. These are the bits of code you need to upload to the Arduino Nanos to make the basic work. So it's the video terminal and the basic interpreter. It's all free. It's all there for you. There's QR tags and there's the links on screen right now. So this is where I'm going to break things, Alan. You may have to step in. A quick live demo. Let's see if this will work. So hopefully, if I just jump back.
All looking good so far. Tom.
I've lost my way. Oh, hang on.
Don't worry.
Stop sharing. There we go. Okay, so hopefully, if I jump to video 2, you should see the command prompt on screen. So this is actually one of the systems that is actually running at the moment. It's coming through a capture card and it's live. So if I hit reset, we can actually reset and it comes up. Now let's ask for some memory. So I can type MEM for memory, and it will show you how much memory it has in the system. Now you see it says 1019, that's bytes. So 1024 is usually 1K of RAM, and you need 1000K to make a megabyte. So we are dealing with very small amounts of memory here, but it is possible to do something with the machine. Now I have a piece of code already preloaded into the machine. So if I type load and I type list, there is a really small basic program, old school basic. It starts at 1, then it jumps to 10, goes 20, 30, 40, and 50. If I now type run, you can see it just prints and counts random numbers. So it's a very simple program, but it's running on a real computer that I built out of bits, mostly powered by Arduino Nanos, including generating the video signal you're seeing on the screen. Obviously, if I'm running a looping program, I'm locked out, but I can hit escape and it breaks the program and we could list again if we wanted. Now, let's go back to presentation. So people are asking me about the future. Well, one of the other exhibits I bought and the version you've just seen running was actually a PCB or printed circuit board version of the computer. Now, this is a little more complicated. It's still the same design, but you do need to be able to solder parts. But this is kind of where we're going with the project for people who want to sort of jump to the next level. And I was also asked, well, what about other boards? Like, for example, the brand new or recently released Raspberry Pi Pico. And I do actually have an experimental rig, that's what this photo is here, of the Pico running, but it's a bit of a Frankenstein machine. So it's got half one of my PCBs, it's got a Raspberry Pi 400 plugged into it, and you can see one of the Cafe Ray Tube monitors with the output on the other side. So we're not quite in a position to publish or show people yet. Lots of ideas for the future, things I'm working on. Larger memories, up to 16K, 32-bit running. This will be things like the Pico boards, which are 32-bit boards, not 8-bit boards like the Arduino. Bitmap modes, graphics, high resolution color, VGA, removable storage, SD cards, real-time operating systems, multiple language support, not just basic, mouse and GUI, so that's click and point type systems. It might even be possible to get an early version of Windows to boot on a future system. So details and links, my channel, youtube.com/Wi-Fi Sheep. Please do come over and visit us. There's lots of project content on there, not just tiny basic computers. I've been running for about 5 years now. That's a lot of content, both Raspberry Pi, vintage computing, such as Commodore 64, BBC Micro, and of course, the sort of maker projects I do, such as tiny basic computers. I'm on Twitter, it's @Wi-Fi Sheep. And for those of you that feel particularly generous, I do have a Patreon, which you can join, and we do have some exclusive content and toolkit download content as part of our Tiny Basic Computers project, and that's from our $3 or £2 a month tier. That's over at patreon.com/Wi-Fi Sheep. If I've got time, Alan, just a cheeky little one, shows coming up. Now, when I came to Preston, I honestly thought the Preston MakeFest was going to be the only event this year due to COVID, and then all of a sudden, all these other shows exploded. So we've already talked about Stafford Raspberry Pi Jam, which is Keris Locke's event. So I'm there from Tuesday 14th. Back in Cambridge, the Retro Computing Festival 2021, that's at the Centre for Computing History, has announced they are running, and I am going to be there as an exhibitor. And then we're back to, I think we've got 2 more, or is it 3 more Stafford Raspberry Pi Jams. I do think there's going to be one in December as well. All links on that are on my website at events.wifisheep.co.uk. And I would say Q&A, but I might be out of time.
We do have Anthony next, but we can.
I'm okay.
Anthony for a minute or two. Yes. Tom, you mentioned Patreon, and I know, and I'm sure Anthony and a few others know. But do you want to just remind us what Patreon is, and for listeners at home, people watching don't know?
It's a social media platform in which people who enjoy your content and want to basically tip you a little bit of money to say, thank you very much for making this. We want to support you financially. What you need to understand is Wi-Fi Sheep is quite a big part of my job. So my living is made from what I do here. So there's always a bit of a commercial element going on. And basically people can tip $1, $2. It's normally in US dollars, but it does transfer to euros and pounds, depending where you are in the world. And for that, you support me. So I say thank you very much. And in return, I give you links to downloadable content. So Wi-Fi Sheep has about 30 videos that are in a private playlist. And there's also downloadable content such as BBC Micro programs, 3D print items, and we have a toolkit for Tiny Basic, which includes a bundle of software to make the system work.
So for non-techie people, it's like the equivalent of your busking in the street.
Yes.
That anybody can listen to for free.
Yes.
You've got your hat there.
I got the hat there.
And people put things in the hat, they get that. You stop, you go, oh, thank you very much, person. He's just tipped me.
But then you get an exclusive piece of music. Yes,
at the same time.
That's kind of how it
works. That works really
yeah.
nicely. And that's why, Tom, it's nice to hear. We're not saying you have to do these things, but these, they're out there if people feel that they want to support and contribute. Yeah. Thank you very much. And I'll just repeat, Tom did mention his YouTube channel. It was on there. Tom might even go over to YouTube now in the chat, and he might just put another link to that.
Put it in there, but youtube.com/Wi-Fi Sheep, all one word.
Okay. And Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Now we're going to move to Anthony.
Actually, can I just show Tom what I've been working on?
Please do.
Here you go, Tom. I've been working on something as well. That uses Pico Pi.
Yeah.
And I'm also doing a RISC-V based.
Okay, yeah.
With an FPGA on the side.
Oh, no, that's that's the kind of ballpark we're getting into, Edge. That's really cool. Thanks for showing us that.
I really don't know where you people find the time for these kind of projects. Anthony was mentioning early on a code club that you do at a primary school. In Grimsor before.
Yeah, well, I can't mention the name because I don't know if I'm allowed.
Well, we might not mention the name of the school, but we can say anybody who knows Grimsor
4, 5,
will know.
6, but it's been off for the last, I don't know now, 18 months because of COVID.
There are code clubs in other schools. It was just there was a bit of chatter going on in the green room before, and you mentioned that you support the code club at a primary school in Grimsor. Yeah. I mean, some people won't even know how to spell Grimsor, or they'll try and say it like Grim R or something like that. So a little bit of a funny story here in a way, or a funny peculiar, is that Anthony, you and I first met at a computer club back in the 1980s or so. Yeah, Preston Atari computer enthusiasts.
Yeah,
and for the record, I don't know that you nor I owned an Atari computer.
I didn't at the beginning. I was saving up. I used to go into Lasky's and program theirs on a Saturday morning, figuring it all out, and I learned assembly code, 6502.
Whereas I had my Sinclair ZXC21, and it might as well have been made out of cardboard than one I have now. And the reason I mention this is because a lot of people will say they never knew that computer club ever existed. And that's the point where I was a little bit worried that RJam in the university, in that room, while we've got fantastic facilities and the university are very happy to support us, what if somebody had lived in Preston for 20 years or so and never knew we were doing those things? So that was the intention of our event at the Harris Museum, was to say to the world, look, here's Anthony. You might have seen Anthony years ago, maybe in the news or something like that, for some of the very exciting and adventurous projects that Anthony has worked on. Hint, hint. However, here's something else that Anthony is doing. So tell us, what did you bring along to MakeFest?
I don't know if I can share my screen.
Yeah, you can do that if you want.
How do I do that?
See where it says share screen? On the toolbar.
Oh yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good job, Anthony, joined the technical
screen
rehearsal earlier.
3. Is that sharing? Do I have to do a share? Can you see that?
We can now see a screen full of code.
Okay. Well, this is Gyros. It's a Lua-based engine, and it exports to all the platforms. It's free, open source. I'm one of the people who helped contribute to it. I'm not one of the main ones, but I'm one of them. And this is a little bit of code. This is part of a game. So if I show you the game, That's the game. This is the code here, which does the split screen. So all that code there handles this split screen. So one player can move off while the other one, so if I resume it, you can see it handles that. And then when they go together, seamlessly joins it back. And the code that you need in Lua to do that is just that little bit there. From there to there. That handles all the maps, the split, the seamless join, everything. So that's all you need for that kind of thing. You know, like in the Lego games where they split the screen.
And while we've been running our jams in Preston for 9 years, next year will be our 10th year. I would say for a good deal, many of those years, you've been trying to say to the world, this Gaderos, it's fantastic. You need to, I've never seen you wear the t-shirt, but you've certainly been waved the flag quite a few times.
It's good and it's free. We teach it at the Code Club, along with things like Scratch and a couple of other ones. But Lua's used in a lot of engines. So if they learn it in this, they can use it for Roblox.
And it's incredibly powerful. I mean, compared to some other programming languages, it renders graphics very smoothly, very quickly.
You'll actually see there, it's running, even on the slowest machines, that runs at 60 frames per second. So, And
you've also been able to publish games using
Gaderos. You can export to all the different platforms, everything, Android, iOS, Windows, even the Xbox.
So if there was a young person in your family, or you knew somebody who was that way inclined,
I used to program games in the late 80s, early 90s in assembly code, but about 10 years ago now, I wanted to show my kids how to program games, and this seemed to be the best platform to do it on.
So if we move on to talk about Saturday now. So on Saturday, you had a short throw.
Can I stop sharing my screen? How do I stop sharing my screen?
Just click.
No idea.
Click on the share screen thing, or I can.
It's gone. Oh, there it is.
Don't worry. It's fine because we can see it at the same time. It's relevant.
Okay.
Yeah. So on Saturday last week, Saturday 28th. You had one of your games running on a large
it was this
screen.
one and a couple of other ones. So I can try.
What I can do in a moment is I can put some photos on so people can see. But we got some fantastic photos where, I mean, when people say people's faces lit up, quite literally, people's faces were lit up by the colors from the game. And I'm going to share some photos now from the event. So we've got one here on the screen. So I noticed people didn't really want to leave your space. They were happy to stay there.
Yeah, kids like playing the game.
They do. Do you think that's a bad thing?
Ash, though, at Rockford, that game, with some new ideas.
Do you think them wanting to stay and play the game kind of defeated your purpose in being there?
Yeah, I think a different event would be better if we had some workshops. I think if you did it, say at the university, if the university gives you some space, and you could use their rooms, because you need the computers, and you have the presentation stuff there and everything else, which would make things a lot better. You could do some workshops. I think if you did it over 2 days as well, I think it'd be better rather than 1 day. That way, people who have to travel a long distance, it's not just 1 day that they could get there. Indeed. And it's more worthwhile for them to travel that distance.
But if we reflect back on what was the theme of, or what was the purpose of Preston MakeFest, it was to show people you can do these things, not to show them necessarily how to do them. And in that photo there, I think I can zoom in just a little bit. You had one screen was showing, here's the code, like the engine, and then on the slide.
And I was showing people, say, for example, you want to change the level, I could change the level that you start at and the graphics of the level on the computer, and how many lives you've got, how many credits you've got, and things. It's just a variable in the program. So, and
you did create a little bit of a problem for us because it was hard for people to get past. So there was this crowd of people to watch. And I think part of that as well, maybe in the fact that you had the projector. I thought that was a really good idea, where if you just had two small screens,
I don't think it would have been as good.
So it was, in some ways, it was almost as attractive as the R2D2 because you had something enormous that people could relate to. You don't often see games on such a large screen. So anybody else going to a festival like that, although it did for us as the organizers cause a little bit of a problem because it meant we had to darken the room because Anthony needed the room to be darker.
Here's George, he was there.
Yeah. Hello, George. Yeah, we've seen you in the photos. Did you beat your dad at the game?
No.
You know what?
It's George's voice who's the zombie saying brains and stuff in the games, and he helped influence the game. That's the good thing. You can. I do these games kind of for fun, really. So. And
there was one where we've got Lucy's voice in. Is what rhymes with purple? That was another.
Oh, right, with Martians.
Oh,
we couldn't think of what a name for the game. And there was Martians in it. We couldn't find anything that rhymed with the word Martian, so just decided to call that game What Rhymes with Martians.
Anthony, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for supporting our event. Thank you for bringing something that drew in the crowds. And hopefully at a future event, we can have some workshops where people can explore the potential of
Gideros. Like I said, if anyone wants to learn to program Lua, if they go to Gideros, the forums, they're really helpful. And it's a dead easy language to learn. Like we teach it year 5 and 6 at primary school. Wow. So it's really brilliant. Easy. It's kind of like Python, but easier and faster.
Okay. So thank you very much, Anthony and George. Hope to see you at our events in the future.
Okay.
Now, we've got just 2 more people who I think are going to join us this evening, if we got it right. I'm looking for our next one, John, and I think John may be in the green room at the moment, so I might have to see if I can move John into the main session if he's still there. John can probably hear me around about now if that's working. If not, we might just jump to Josh as our next one. While I'm waiting for John to join us, let me remind you of a few things. So we are reflecting and reviewing. Oh, here's John. John has now. Are you there, John? You are muted at the moment. We can see a lovely colored pattern of lights on your screen, on your camera.
Alan?
Yes.
Right. There's an interesting part of the pattern on the bottom set of lights. Those that have done arithmetic, see if they can spot the pattern.
Is it to do with a very kind of rudimentary system for counting?
Something to do like that. Except,
so it's possible I've either got it or I haven't got it.
Go on.
Like, is it true or false, perhaps?
Well, each light represents something being on and off. Now, if you notice the right-hand side, I don't know if you can, if I can see, you've got 3, 2, 1, gone out, going out, bang, a lot more on. So
it's reversing, it's counting backwards in binary.
Yes, it's counting backwards in binary. So it's a 1.
So it'll always finish with the very last light on the right-hand side, which is also known as the least significant bit.
Correct.
Okay. So John, this was one of the projects that you brought along to our MakeFest event on Saturday, 28th of August.
Yes.
And it's something that I imagine members of the public would look at it, and if you told them this was a computer, they might even get into an argument with you and say, that's not a computer. Was that the case?
Actually, they were just looking at the lights, see the lights. And yes, basically I was telling them that many, many years ago, I could even say previous millennium, computers, when you started a computer, it didn't just put the power on and it was working away. You had to do extra bits and pieces. So you see all these little buttons here.
Yep. Toggle switches.
Yeah, the toggle switches there. You can use those to set up an address in the computer. You can then put information at that address, again using these toggle switches. And then you can go to the next address, next piece of data. And eventually you'll have a small program which can be then used to run something like a paper tape.
Ah.
So you can pull the paper tape through. You've spotted here one of the problems with paper tape, they keep falling down. And basically you can put the program, load the program which starts the paper tape reader up, and then the paper tape reader will then load the program into the computer, which makes things a bit easier by using paper tape. Unfortunately, paper tape can be a bit, as you see,
temperamental.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the word I'm looking for.
And John, am I right in saying this is a reproduction of what was originally called a PDP-11, because this one's based around the Raspberry Pi. They've called it a Pi DP-11.
Yes. Basically, it's a two-thirds model, two-thirds replica of a PDP. I produced a document. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, we can see that, yeah.
Right. So,
okay. So there's a photograph where you can see the full size.
Yeah, and there's the two-thirds size.
Yeah.
So I called it Beauty and the Beast. And I'll leave you to think about which one's the beauty and which one's the beast.
And are you going to tell me that back in the early 1970s or so, you were learning to program using something like this?
Actually, it was the 1980s.
Ah, okay.
And the first person, I was working at a computer company called ICL, and we had a special graphics terminal which could show the integrated circuit layout, but it was controlled by an equivalent to this PDP-11. And the first person in that wanted to use the graphics terminal had to bootstrap, which is load the program in using the keys in, so that first of all it could then bounce up the disk drive, which could then load up the program, which could then control the graphics terminal. So you could then start to see the layout of the integrated circuits that were being used and developed by ICL at the time.
It is quite a beautiful thing to watch over a period of time, because the lights are quite mesmerizing. If we watch films from the 1950s and 60s that show what computers were going to look like, they made a lot more noise, and there was whistles and buzzes and bangs, whereas this, would the original PDP-11 have been as silent as this one?
No, because probably the tape drive would have been whirring away like mad.
Yes, okay.
And I mean the magnetic tape drives, not the paper tape.
So Anthony's just mentioned that he also learned programming the language COBOL on an ICL computer at what was previous version of the university in Preston called Preston Polytechnic, using punch cards and paper. Now, John, you've been attending our physical jams in Preston when we hold them at UCLan in that space for a very long time, and you strike me as the unlike myself, you're not one who necessarily wants to stand up on a stage in front of lots of people and say, hey everybody, look at this, but you always bring some interesting projects along and you have them on a table, and people always find their way over to you. And you seemed very much in that capacity at our event, the MakeFest event. Would you say so?
Yes.
Yeah.
Having taught for only 6 years, I thought I'd get out and went into computing. So yes, I'd rather people look at the wonderful lights, and then it's almost one-to-one really, where I'm feeling better at.
But nonetheless, as people, I noticed at the event, people were coming over and they were speaking to you and asking questions. And we did have, which I had on the screen earlier, some nice photos of people. You could see puzzled looks on their faces as they were concentrating. Does that sound right? People, yes, yeah.
Basically, what I was asking, usually the first thing I ask when I have a new person come along is, what does the white switch do? Alan, what does the white switch do?
Is it execute, run, write, store?
I'll give you a word. It starts with T, ends in T, and has ES in the middle.
Oh,
It's a test button.
okay.
So I don't know if you can see now.
Yeah, it flips up.
Basically, it checks all the lights are working.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, the lights are on, but I don't know whether or not they're completely working.
We don't know if there's anybody home. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what the test button was there for. And I showed some people little LEDs that were used inside here, and I gave 1 or 2 away. So you might have people sort of building for light systems.
Well, maybe if they look at some of Tom's materials on his channel, they could start building their own version.
Yeah.
Reflecting on the event, John, one thing that Anthony and Brian and a few others have said this evening is it would have been nice to have hands-on workshops. But I'm guessing you would kind of disagree in a way. It's nice to have things just to show people.
Yeah. Things that are working is better. Unfortunately, my TV test reader wasn't reading, so I was a bit disappointed with that.
So it requires people to use their imagination just a little bit.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
But they can look at the paper tape and just imagine how much information is there.
Mm.
In fact, I think this is a 4K byte tape, which can be used for another of my toys, which of course has another set of lights on the front.
John, I'm going to move on to our final speaker, but I'd love to say again, thank you. I know you hadn't been in terrific shape beforehand, and you were a bit worried that some of your projects might not be finished before the event, but thank you so much for coming and supporting our MakeFest event, and looking forward to seeing you again when we start holding more events in the future.
Yeah.
And we have our, thank you, John. And we have our final guest who's going to join us now shortly. It's Josh. And I had some photos on the screen earlier. Let me see, can I find those photos now? Just while Josh connects his audio and makes sure everything's working. So I took you on a little tour around. We were looking at Anthony's displays that Anthony had. Are you there, Josh? Ready to join us? You're going to unmute?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So while I scroll through these photos, I'm going the wrong way, actually. I meant to be getting towards the end. We also had some families who weren't able to join us tonight. So some families came along and they brought some of their projects. So there was a young lad called Andrew. He's been building a vehicle. We had Isaac. Oh, there's Andrew's vehicle. We had Isaac was building things in Minecraft. Georgia, and going the wrong way there again. So, and then we're back to our photos at the end. So Josh, let's just for a moment, let's turn back the clock a lot. Let's go back 9 years ago to one of our very, very first jam. And I could ask you questions about that, but you probably won't be able to tell me a lot because you weren't there. You weren't at our first jam.
No, I think the first event that I actually went to in Preston, I don't think it was a Raspberry Jam. I think so. Was it 2013 that on a Saturday you ran? I think it was once a month or something like that. It was what was it? Was it Hack Jam? Is that how I got the right name?
Yeah, probably something like that.
In the same room, I think, though. So it was like a similar format to the jam, but kind of more, I think it was more focused towards people my age. Yeah. That's kind of like how I got into it nearly 9 years ago.
And then you did start coming to our jams, and you had this very strong, clear ambition that you wanted to use code to build and create things. And at that time, while you enjoyed school, you didn't feel school could really give you what you needed. So you knew, or you hoped that coming to something like our jams would help.
Yeah, I think the idea was like, if you're into football or tennis or something like that, then there are clubs that you can go to for those kind of things, but like those weren't really my interests. So I had an interest in computers and messing about with different things like that, and that was kind of the only thing that was up and running at the time. And I thought, oh well, it was actually my mum that found out about it through a colleague. So I went along, and then kind of it went from there. And 9 years, I'm still attending. And yeah, I've learned lots in the.
So it's helped in some way.
Oh yeah, it's helped massively. Yeah. I mean, like I don't think if the hack jams and the Raspberry jams didn't exist, I probably wouldn't know what a Raspberry Pi is, or I probably wouldn't be doing what I am now.
So, I mean, it is quite incredible when we look back, and we're not going to go into all of it now. But you have now started a career in software development recently. And we say started. Well, you did actually start. The difference is you're on a salary now. You work for a company, and you're developing software for a company while you're working. Yes, am I correct?
Yeah. So I've been doing an apprenticeship for the past year, and that was kind of like. So I spoke to a few people before the pandemic, a few months before. I was trying to decide, do I go to college, or do I look at a different path and see what the other options are? I decided that an apprenticeship might be the best way, and it turned out to be the best option, especially with. I mean, obviously at the time when I signed up to do an apprenticeship, I didn't know what the next 18 months had in store with the pandemic and stuff, but yeah, it definitely turned out to be the right decision.
So we just to mention people who don't know this, but Josh, you're now part of our planning and organizing group. So when the pandemic did come and we're having these conversations, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to stop running the jams? You've been integral to those planning discussions right from the onset. And I think if I'm correct, when I said, do you know what, we should do something on a Saturday and get members of the public along, I had this impression that you had your head in your hands and you were, no, I don't think this is going to work, Alan. So you're able to prove me wrong now. Yeah, you're able to say it was a stupid idea.
No, it was a good idea. I think one of the problems that we had was like, what does the event in person look like at the minute? Obviously, at the time when we were discussing, the hybrid in-person events or whatever it was, we didn't know what the restrictions would be and that kind of thing. But it turned out to be really good. I think the venue obviously was a last minute change because of where we originally wanted to do it. But I think it was a good idea to have it in the house because, like many people mentioned this evening, you get people in there who wouldn't necessarily come to an event at the university or a different venue where we normally run the jam. So yeah, I think it was a good decision to kind of get people who might have an interest, but like me 9 years ago, have an interest but don't know where to go to kind of meet other people who are interested in the same thing.
And I mean, I think it'll be too early to judge any outcomes or results as that somebody came and since attending MakeFest has decided to, but just like yourself, perhaps in years to come, if we are doing more things like this where we do go out and hold things more in the public, we may reach more young people and older people as well who decide that this is something that they want to do. Was there anything in particular you felt worked really well on the Saturday at the Harris? I mean, you have mentioned the fact that we're meeting people we wouldn't normally meet. So anything else that stood out for you, or we can just move on to talk about?
No, I think probably the standout thing for me is someone who has been going to these events for the past 9 years and stuff. It was quite a good opportunity to, because obviously the Preston MakeFest was one of the first events that had happened since all the events stopped last March. So I think it was a good place for people across the country to come along and meet people who they've missed over the past 18 months. And we had people from Cambridge, Birmingham, Manchester, people who we usually see at the events, and people we know off online and Twitter who we've seen at a few events but might not necessarily see it every event. So yeah, I think that was a good opportunity to kind of meet people who we've missed over the past 18 months and, make those connections again.
And yeah, it was nice that some of those people, took tremendous effort and personal cost to come and visit us, where we're used to traveling to them, are we, to Cambridge and Manchester and London to see those kind of things. And a lot of people have mentioned hands-on workshops that would have made the event perhaps a lot better in terms of its reach and engagement. Was there anything else that occurred to you that you thought might have made the event more successful?
No, I think obviously, it was the first time that we'd done something like that, especially, given the restrictions and stuff that we had in place. I think, it was the right mix of different things that people could see. Obviously we've learned things for next time, and obviously, workshops is hopefully something we can do, if restrictions are eased a bit more and people feel a bit more comfortable actually sitting down and, getting hands-on with some equipment and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's something that we can hopefully do next year.
Okay. Well, Josh, thank you very much. Now, one of the things we're going to do in a moment is we're going to open our jam jar. For people who've never joined us before, this is our playful name for our breakout rooms. What you might be able to see on the screen now is there is now a link on the screen that says how to join our jam jar, and I've just posted it into the YouTube chat as well. Well, it's called Jam Jar. The link is http://exa.is/r/jam jar. Kind of rhymes, that last bit. So if you haven't joined one of these jam jar sessions, my advice to you would be join now. As soon as you can with the link, I'll have to let you in, and I'll have to do that. And I need to rename the green room. We'll have this main room here. I will stop the recording. I will say goodbye to people on YouTube shortly. In fact, I'm going to stop the recording now. So let me just stop that. That will just take a moment. I feel like somebody else saying, where's the button? Right. So the recording is stopped. We are still live on YouTube at the moment. And as people come in, they might join the main room or not. So if you are watching us live on YouTube, I've just posted a link into the chat. You could just click on that link in the chat and it will take you to the jam jar. So before, if you haven't ever joined our jam jar before, then just try it. It's easier to let people in now at this point than it is later on, because I might go for a short break and leave people here in charge. So I can see people are joining in now. So there will be two rooms. There's the main room that people are joining, and there'll be another room which is called the green room. So if you want to join, there's two different rooms. You could go and join any of them. So there's one that's called the green room. There's one that's just the main room, and you may be there now. Right, I'm going to say a few messages to our people over on YouTube. I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us. All of the links to everything I will send out via an email in the next day or so. There'll be a link to this recording, the YouTube one, and there will be a link to the other recordings with the questionable audio quality, a link to the photos. There's a feedback form that I always ask people, please leave us some feedback, just to say if there was anything about the event that worked or didn't work quite so well. Apologies, we weren't able to share video recordings from the event. That's something that we need to. Apparently Josh has got all the kit. Josh could have done this for us on Saturday, but Josh mentioned that today. Josh. So right, in a few seconds, about 5 seconds or so, we're going to stop the live stream. So I'm saying goodbye to people now.